Good afternoon, welcome back to Football League World TV. It's time for a debate, and we're talking Ipswich Town and whether Paul Cook can guide the Tractor Boys into the Championship from League One this season. I'm your host, George Dagless. Joining me this afternoon, Chris Thorpe and Marcus Ally. Chris, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you, mate. Looking forward to getting into this and talking all things Tractor Boys.
Good stuff. Marcus, how are you getting on?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Ipswich has been a bit of a peculiar case this season, I think, so far. So, yeah, similar to Chris, just looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, certainly plenty to discuss concerning the men from Portman Road. Ipswich fans, do get in touch. Let us know how you think it's going along this season and whether you have got a chance, you feel, of winning promotion to the Championship this year under Paul Cook. Let's get straight into it. Chris, let's come to you first of all. Let's just talk the season so far for Ipswich. We're sort of a third of the way, really. I think things started pretty badly. I think it's fair to say, given the expectation that was around the club. But things seem to have clicked more in recent weeks, don't they? I guess in many ways it was probably only a matter of time before that happened, given how many players they signed in the summer window.
Yeah, I think it's sort of situation you find yourself in if you're building a squad of that size. It's always going to take some time to sort of gel and sort of build that cohesion, if you like. And yeah, they had that slow start, and you had maybe even a few people saying that Cookie could be on his way, but he's obviously turned it around like the good manager he is. And yeah, their quality's really shining through. Obviously, Macaulay Bond's really been the standout of his goals, but they're also getting goals from other areas now as well. So yeah, they're picking up at the right time and sort of doing well in what is a congested winter period. So yeah, I'm sure the Ipswich fans will be very pleased with what they've seen lately, for sure.
Yeah, it certainly has picked up from that early poor form. Marcus, what have you made of the season so far for the men from Portman Road?
Well, even at the start, they were still scoring goals, so it did feel like it was going to turn eventually. I've been very impressed with Macaulay Bond, obviously being that standout name coming in as a loanee that kind of went under the radar amid these 19 amazing summer signings. But there's definitely a partnership developing in midfield with Sammy Morsey and Lee Evans now, and they're starting to look like the side that we really expected them to be. Just 4 points off the playoffs, considering how far down the table they were in the opening month and a half of the season. That's pretty impressive. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they get on. The next 8 games before the new year, before we move into January, they've got to play Sunderland twice, Rotherham, Charlton, Wigan and Wycombe Wanderers. So 6 of those 8 games, I think you could say they might not go in sort of expecting to win as they have been in some of their more recent fixtures. So we're going to learn a lot about them in this next period. But you know, you have to be impressed by the way that they've turned it around in the last couple of months.
Chris, let's look at their strengths now, Ipswich. I think it's fair to say goal scoring is one of them. They've blown a fair few teams away so far in League One. But, you know, what sort of makes them such a good goal scoring side? What are their real sort of, their strengths over some of the other rivals they've got in League One going for promotion this year?
I think it's the versatility of the options that they have in those attacking areas. You look at someone like Burson Salina, who's obviously been a standout sort of signing for them, hit the ground running in the same sort of manner as he did from that loan spell we had from Man City before. He can, either play on the left, but he can also play as a number 10, and quite often during the 90 minutes he'll interchange with, the likes of Carl Edwards as well. And then you've also got Connor Chaplin, who's also been known to play that area more when he was at Barnsley. Obviously, he's not long been at Ipswich. So I think that versatility really helps them. And then also having different options off the bench. They've got an embarrassment of riches, haven't they? Wes Burns is another good player who's perhaps doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. He's not one of the more established names, but I think he's been a great signing for them. He's obviously been amongst the goals too. So yeah, they just got players that can change a game. Joe Pigott can't even get a kick at the moment, and he scored 22 goals for us at Wimbledon last season. So it just shows you that they really mean business this season, and they've just thought, right, we need to bed out the squad with as much talent as possible and give us the capabilities of getting promotion. And I think they've done that. And yeah, the performances are showing that having the sort of wealth of options is helping them for sure.
And Marcus, is that those sort of sentiments? Would you echo from Chris that it's that depth they've got going forwards in particular, and the quality combinations they can put together? Is that a real strength?
Yeah, definitely. I think Selena is probably the standout player, as in sort of what are you doing in League One? It definitely maybe shades of Adel Taarabt in the Championship, potentially, if he really does get going this season. But one player I'd also look to is one that's been struggling with injury, and that's Kane Vincent-Young, the attacking right back. He's got 3 assists in just 6 league outings this season, so really proving that he can affect the game from that deeper position when he is fit. That's the real issue here. I was looking at some of Paul Cook's previous successes at Wigan and how crucial Anthony Robinson and Nathan Byrne were as attacking fullbacks when they got promoted from League One, and of course had that really impressive second half of the season in the Championship before the points deduction and what went on from there. So I think he's another player that's possibly going under the radar, but could play a huge impact in the second half of the season if he can stay fit, and obviously Ipswich can break into that top 6.
Marcus, would you say, there are many sort of standout weaknesses just on the flip side of Ipswich? I mean, you look at perhaps how many goals they conceded at the start of this season in particular while things were gelling. Then it looks like they have sort of tightened up in more recent weeks defensively as well. Their goals against column is still not ideal in the League One table when you look at the sides above them, but it looks like they've addressed that. So are there any sort of real standout weaknesses you think that Paul Cook and co need to address?
I can't really pick any out, to be honest. Like you say, I do think that defensive situation is being addressed. Nsiala's coming in recent weeks to good effect. Pairing with George Edmondson, who is their sort of stalwart at the back, he's going to be at the heart of defence for the rest of the season if he can stay fit. Another positive impact has been Christian Walton coming in goal for Václav Hladky, who didn't start that well after joining from Salford City in the summer. Walton, a safe pair of hands, has had some really successful Championship loan spells in the past from Brighton and Hove Albion. I think he's made a real good impact and sort of reassured the back line around him since coming in between the sticks. So for me, there's definitely no obvious shortcomings in this squad. It really is, Cook can't make any excuses. He's got so much quality at his disposal.
And how about you, Chris? Are there any weaknesses that you look at that Ipswich squad maybe, or the way they go about the way they play? Are there any particular standout weaknesses you can find in this Ipswich squad, or maybe you're similar to Marcus in the sense that there aren't really any glaring issues at the moment?
I wouldn't say weaknesses, I'd say habits that they might fall into again this season. Obviously, early in the season, they were really guilty of sort of giving away leads, in particular at home. I think that's just something they need to be wary of. Obviously, not conceding as many goals as they were before, not drawing games like 2-2 and 3-3 in some cases as they were. I just think they have to just guard against complacency, because obviously with the talent that they have in their team, they probably feel like they're more than good enough to get out of this league, but they just need to take it one game at a time, which I'm sure they will.
I suppose as well, Chris, that in recent years, obviously under Paul Lambert, Ipswich started particularly well, were better than they'd have this season, and then tailed off at the end of last year. I guess there'll be a hope that there won't be another tailing off this season. Obviously, with the start they've had, they can't really afford that at all. They need to keep progressing now, don't they, instead of having a fade away at the end of the year. Yeah,
definitely, and they still got January to come, so. I've seen interviews that Ashton's done recently, and he sort of hinted there might be more business, which will be crazy, to be honest. But I can imagine there'll also be some players heading out. The likes of James Norwood looks like he's going to be heading out as well. Obviously on the transfer list, maybe Caden Jackson as well. Thomas Holy, who's obviously just come back from a little brief loan stint at Cambridge. So there's some players to get out, but I'm sure they could get 1 or 2 more in to improve what is an already ridiculously talented squad. But like you say, they just need to just be wary of being complacent and just keep that consistency. As long as they're scoring goals, there'll be a challenge for any team that they face, to be honest.
Let's just keep with the players, Marcus. We've mentioned a few already in terms of their strengths in a more general sense, but which sort of key players would you pick out that are going to be influential in terms of their promotion challenge this year?
Well, there's so much, and Cook's got so much squad rotation players that you can lean on when when the fixtures come thick and fast. I think Wes Burns has been quite a consistent performer. I know Chris has mentioned his name already, but even when the results were struggling, he did seem to be a player that was stepping up to the task, really getting the ball and dragging them forward. He was in and out of the side at Fleetwood a little bit last season, but showed in glimpses the potential he had, which is why the Tractor Boys obviously invested in him in the summer. And I think amongst some of the more hit and miss names in the squad and that are in competition for the positions in wide areas and other attacking areas that Burns can play in, I definitely think he's up there, and a player that's got a big future ahead of him as well.
Chris, is there one name in particular you think that's going to be sort of really pivotal this season for Ipswich going forward? They've got so many good names, obviously.
I just think Selena can't really look past him. Should be playing probably in the Championship anyway. I'm sure if they went up, they'd probably try and get him on a permanent deal. So yeah, I go for him just purely because of the individual quality that he has, and he loves the spectacular goal, doesn't he? And I'm sure he'll come up with a few more this season before we finish off.
And you mentioned January just now, Chris, as well. Obviously they're very busy in the summer. We saw a lot of players leave Ipswich as well. Plenty of them went to Colchester United, which is a different story in itself. But plenty of players arrived too. Do you think there's a need for them to add further in January? Do you think they perhaps would be better off just sitting on their hands and letting the squad they've got develop further? Or do you think there are sort of openings for further signings?
I think there's always a need to improve, really. Maybe even if it's just one or two players, just to sort of bed out a few areas. I mean, we were talking about Vincent Young earlier. Like, it's good that he's returned, but I'd say maybe a backup for him at right back would be good, because I know they've used I think it's Wolfenden filled in at right back when they had injuries there. Maybe a little weak spot, so they might want to get an extra player in there, whether an experienced option or a loanee. They could maybe do with one more, just to help bed out that defence, because you never know what injuries are going to occur as the season goes on. But as for other areas, I can't really see where you would want to bring players in, to be honest, because obviously up front you've got a ridiculous amount of options, and then midfield's pretty solid with Morsey and Evans in there as first choice. So yeah, I'd just say maybe one or two if they're really going to push the boat out, to be honest, mate.
Okay, and Marcus, how do you see January for Ipswich? Do you think they need to invest more, or sort of leave it as it is at the moment?
From an Ipswich fan's point of view, I probably wouldn't be too disappointed if they didn't even bring anyone in January. I think sometimes having such a big squad can work against you. Paul Cook's got to get all those players to buy into his ideas, even though some of them that are still high profile for the level are not even getting on the bench a lot of the time. So maybe it is good to maybe get one or two in just to freshen it up. They've got to be players that will add something different to what Cook's already got. But in terms of looking at areas of the squad that need addressing, I can't really find any, to be honest.
Okay, and then obviously after the January window closes, we're sort of into the thick of the run-in at that point. Obviously, Paul Cook's achieved promotions before, the likes of Wigan and places like that. And you look at, Ipswich have struggled to win promotion in recent seasons. I think it's fair to say we've touched on how they've paid it off towards the end of season. How influential and important do you think Cook's experience will be, Chris, in terms of the run-in once we get there next year?
Oh, it goes without saying, mate. The job he done at Wigan, as you mentioned there, and obviously Portsmouth as well. You can't sort of take away from that fact that he's achieved those sort of things at Football League level, and he's got players that he's worked with before, which I think will help him even more. They know what he'll expect when you get to the crunch stage of the season, if you like, where you're coming into the run-in and you can't afford a slip up. I think it's perfect to have someone of his experience sort of taking charge of what is a multi-talented squad that will also have their own high expectations of each other. And I think also it's worth pointing out, because of the competition they have in that squad, that you need to manage their expectations on playing time as well, because the ones that are on the bench will be frustrated inevitably. But I think he's experienced enough to manage that. I think he's sort of the perfect man for the job when you're looking to get promotion, to be honest.
I mean, in many ways, Marcus, Paul Cook was appointed to win promotion for Ipswich Town, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think anything will phase him going into the run-in. I think he's had assurances that this could potentially be a 2-year project just because of how poorly it did start. Mark Ashton is, completely aware of the amount of money he's invested, but a lot of the players are players that could be there for the next few years and still not suffer a drop-off in levels. Hopefully, they're not players coming out of their peak. These are players going into it. I think even Selena's only in his mid-20s. So I don't think it's a sort of you lose your job if you don't get promoted situation. But I really do back Cook, considering who he's up against. And Ryan Lowe has a lot less experience in a League One promotion race. Obviously, been promoted from League Two twice. It'll be interesting to see if he's up against his former assistant manager, Liam Richardson, towards the back end at Wigan, obviously. But I definitely back Paul Cook. I'm sure, he's been showing some faith in him at the start of the season through the tricky periods, and he'll be keen to repay that faith looking ahead to the second half of the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the likes of Wigan and Plymouth there, Marcus. Before we go, let's get on to the sides that could potentially stop Ipswich from achieving promotion this year. Obviously, Plymouth and Wigan are two of the early pace setters. I guess you'd have them in that category. Which other sides would you pick as potential obstacles that Ipswich won't be able to overcome by the end of the campaign?
Personally, I think Rotherham have got to be thrown in there. I think Rotherham and Wigan are probably the most consistent teams in the league at the moment. And obviously, Paul Warne's won promotion from League One so many times now. He's still got some of the same players that have done that for him. And they're really coming on strong in the last few weeks. Absolutely hammered Sunderland at home a few weeks ago. They'll be really tough to dislodge. I think Rotherham and Wigan are definitely two of the sides that will finish in the top 3 this season. Plymouth, I'm not so sure. I see some similarities between them and Lincoln City last season. Obviously did so well, but their squad's a little bit thin. I know Luke Jeffcott's out at the moment. They're coping quite well. But if there's some more injuries to key players, then I think Plymouth's form could probably slow up a little bit. So I think Rotherham and Wigan are the main two that will definitely be gunning for automatic promotion come the end of the season. If Ipswich even get into that conversation, I think it'd be a decent achievement from Cook considering how they started. So I'd look at those two as maybe the pace setters. I expect Ipswich to be firmly in and around it.
Okay, and Chris, who do you think is going to be, Ipswich's rivals this year? I mean, we haven't even mentioned the likes of Sunderland and Sheffield Wednesday, two massive clubs in League One. Obviously, their form, Sheffield Wednesday proving hard to beat, but then not winning as much as they perhaps should at the moment. And Sunderland have obviously started the season really well, but embarked on a bit of a losing streak in more recent weeks. So how do you see it?
Yeah, I think Wednesday and Sunderland will still be right up there, despite their recent sort of poor results, if you like. Whether the two managers will be there in charge of those clubs come the business end of the season, I'm not so sure. I do feel like patience is really wearing thin at Sunderland and Sheffield Wednesday, to be honest, when you look at the comments online from supporters. And, chairman might not want to admit it, but supporter pressure does play a role in their decisions, and they'll need those results to pick up soon if they're going to keep their jobs. But looking at the squads on paper, they've got enough quality to be right up there either way. So yeah, those two will definitely be up there. Bolton sort of dropped off recently. I don't know if they could make a charge for the playoffs. I don't think they're going to get anywhere near automatic, to be honest. But yeah, I'd say those three off the top of my head. But obviously it can change. There's always teams that can break out of the chasing pack and make a run for the playoffs towards the end of the season. So a very exciting league this season, and tough to predict, to be honest.
It certainly is, but that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to ask you both to predict and come to a conclusion as we bring the debate to a close. Marcus, we'll come to you first of all. Will Paul Cook guide Ipswich Town to promotion this season?
Yeah, if I have to go for one answer, it would be yes. The standout 4 teams for me are Rotherham, Wigan, Plymouth and Ipswich. With, as I've previously said, I think Rotherham, Wigan may be top 2. And then between Plymouth and Ipswich, I just look at the experience and the size of the squads. And I think Ipswich edge it for me. That's without mentioning the steady playoff sides at the moment. Contenders for sure in MK Dons, Oxford United. I think Bolton, as Chris mentioned. Portsmouth have got the players. If Charlton beat Plymouth this weekend, I think maybe people will start taking them a little bit more seriously. However, yeah, I can't deny the quality in the squad. The man's been there and done it before. If I have to lean on one side of this debate, it would be yes. I think Ipswich will get promoted via the playoffs this season.
Okay, and what do you reckon, Chris? Ipswich on their way to the Championship this year?
Well, when I've done my FLW predictions at the start of the season, I put them top, and I don't necessarily think they're going to finish top now, but I still think they'll go up as one of the automatics. Actually, I'm going to push the boat out and sort of put my backing behind them. I think the quality will shine through, and Paul Cook's definitely the man to guide them to the Championship. And obviously they've been away for a few seasons now, and it's about time that they got back to the level that they think that they should be at.
Okay, brilliant. That brings the debate to close. Looks like we're back in Paul Cook and Ipswich to be a Championship side next season. Just before we leave you, coming up on Football League World TV later today, we've got the fan debate, top 5 best Blackpool strikers of all time. Marcus will be hosting that one. You're joined by Lee Charles. And then coming up at 3 o'clock, we got the same kind of show, but with Luton Town this time. Billy Mully's hosting that one. He'll be joined by Ian Robertson. But from us here, thank you very much for joining us. Do subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube if you can. It'd be greatly appreciated. But it's bye for now.